smarter to be on SportsGrid.
That's on me. That's on me. Welcome back in. Happy to have you. We're with you here on Pro Football today. It is a Sunday morning, and that means we have Sunday morning crunch. Now, you might say it's a Saturday morning. No, it's not. Not during this segment. It's Sunday morning. It could be Monday, Tuesday. I don't care when it is. It's now Sunday morning as we go through some of our favorite player props here for today's slate. And this, for me, I am really interested in the quarterbacks today. I'll be going to a quarterback for my best bet. The only quarterback, Joe, I am not using on my prop board today is actually Joe Flacco. Is that slanderous to me?
No, not at all. We talk about Joe Flacco. Last 4 games he started, he's averaged 340 passing yards per game. His total tonight is 275.5. But I'm with you, Kev. I believe both teams want to run the football, establish the line of scrimmage, sustain drives to potentially keep the other quarterback on the sidelines. And if Houston does do that with Devin Singletary and those running backs, Joe Flacco, in my opinion, would go under the 275.5. So sell, baby. Sell. That doesn't mean Cleveland can't win this ball game, but it might be a heavier dose of Jerome Ford and those running backs as well. So yeah. I like the look. I'm under Flacco as well. When I saw the number 275.5, basically he's got to get to 280, 290 in a playoff game. This is a different animal. This Houston defense is very good.
I think their defense is, I don't know if it's tough to get a read on. I mean, the secondary is poor, but they reversed roles in that game against break tendency.
Right.
The pass defense stepped up against the Colts. The run defense was abysmal.
Right.
How does that play out today? I think it's a really interesting question. Let's make sure our radio audience is with us here on a Saturday morning, Sirius XM Channel 159. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi going through the Sunday morning crunch. I want to kind of go through your stuff here, but finish up what were you saying with the Texans?
I was just going to say in regards to this will determine how good of a head coach DeMeco Ryans ultimately is. And the reason why I say that is we saw they lost the previous ball game to Joe Flacco in Cleveland, even though it was a backup quarterback. 36-22, that defense got ripped, right? Now, with a rematch type of situation, if he's able to make adjustments in regards to that secondary to keep Flacco under his total today, his team's going to have an opportunity to win ball games. And we talk about Dennis Allen in rematch situations, why he's good in terms of that type of environment. This will ultimately dictate how far DeMeco Ryans and this team has come in regards to the regular season. So just keep an eye out.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of the favorite player props here today. And we can kind of go one for one a bit, Joe. We'll start with this game with the Texans. I'm on C.J. Stroud twice today, over 21.5 completed passes, as well as over his passing yards prop at 244.5 is where I was able to grab that number. I don't know if it's climbed up a little bit. It's been a number that's coming up some. But here's what this boils down to. I used the Browns' defensive sample size in games started by Joe Flacco. That's their most recent sample size. But I did remove the final game against the Bengals. I thought there was no use in including that game. And over this 5-game run, the quarterbacks are going 25.4 completed passes on 44.2 attempts, throwing for 247.4 yards per game. I know the number that stands out there is the attempts. It's 10 yards over what you need from Stroud to get through that prompt. But when C.J. Stroud this season attempts over, what would be 33 pass attempts and that 34 pass attempts, 6 out of the 7 times he's cleared the completion prompt. 6 out of the 7 times he's cleared the yardage prompt. That's where CJ is most reliable, and that's where I'm going to bank on him today, Joe.
That's a pretty good look. And checkdowns to the running backs, I think, could be key in regards to Devin Singletary. We talked about his number creeping up now from 13.5 to 14.5 respectively. So you want to get that defense running sideline to sideline and then potentially hit them over the top. So it's a good look. I went in regards to this ball game, not in terms of Joe Flacco or Amari Cooper that ripped this defense earlier. I went secondary option. Elijah Moore, 39.5. It's down now. in a couple of books, 38.5 respectively. We saw Elijah Moore step up in his big play spot against his former team, the New York Jets, especially when you look at defensive options, right? DeMeco Ryans wants to take away your number one option, which is Amari Cooper. I don't think they allow him to get anywhere near what he did, but that would leave the door open to the slot receiver, Elijah Moore, in terms of big play. That's only 2 catches as far as I'm concerned. The way Flacco has extended defenses vertically, love the option of 38.5 today.
So I had a similar thought of not going back to Amari Cooper. I was on when they played against the Texans, Amari's long catch over, I don't even remember, 23 and a half. Like the first play was a 75-yard catch. I'm like, ooh, big brain. But then he did all this other stuff. I was like, I left a lot on the table. I think they have to sell out to stop Amari. I'm going to go Njoku over the long catch, 19 and a half yards. He missed us in the first Flacco start, has now hit it in 4 consecutive. With Joe Flacco, tight ends have gone over this number in 5 consecutive games and 6 of 7. I think David Njoku gets a 20-yard catch here in this game as props 53 and a half. You can certainly play that number, but I think if he's going to get there, it's going to be accompanied by a 20-plus yard reception. In Chiefs-Dolphins, Joe, I know there's a couple of numbers that are catching your attention. Talk to me on the Mahomes prop you like.
Mahomes now is down to 239.5. We talk about his last 8 games. He's only 240 passing yards per game. They're at home. It's cold weather. I get that. But we saw Josh Allen rip that defense for 350 yards last week. Not 250, 350. And this was a Josh Allen offense and passing attack that was non-existent over the past previous 4 weeks, right? And he got right against that Dolphin secondary. I understand the cold weather, but I think it's a lot of Rashee Rice. I think it's Travis Kelce. Donnie brought it up in terms of the break. I think he breaks out. Alton Kelce up to 80 and a half receiving yards, but I'm all over Pat Mahomes. I altered him up. I told you 325 plus. They're gonna lose this game, doing or dying on Patrick Mahomes and his arm, and that's where I'm taking the over in this matchup. And then you want me to give the other one?
I'll just do this on Mahomes quickly. I'm playing Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns at minus 130. You never get this juice on Mahomes. No. Even playing poorly, they typically would still go 2.5 at plus money. The 1.5s were around minus 190. He's hit this in 11 out of 14 playoff games, 5 out of 4 out of, I think it's half of the games played at Arrowhead this year. He's missed this in 2 straight. He's not missed this in 3 straight all season long. He's only missed it in 3 straight games twice in his entire career. Mahomes today, we've said it, I hit this with Josh Allen last week in a game that they only scored 2 offensive touchdowns. Mahomes will throw 2 today here in this game against Miami.
I love the look. You might get me in on that. The other look is Tyreek Hill. 86.5 is his number. Last 4 games, he's only averaged 79.5. It should have been sell me something. He's going to break out in a big way. 100-plus for Tyreek tonight.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of Tyreek narrative bets when they played in Germany. He wasn't able to get there. They have been very good against number ones. But this is the Tyreek game. I'll tell you, look, we'll do it later. I'm on Tua's completions tonight. Quick hitters. Let Tyreek make the play after the catch. I think that all lines up. We're right back here on SportsGrid with Pro Football Today after this break.
Sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said, we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia. Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those 2 plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars have, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. Not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back on SportsGrid, Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, Joe Lisi with you here on a Saturday morning that turns into a Sunday morning when we give you the crunch. Lisi and I both locked it in here. I'm on Stroud over 21.5 pass completions, and Njoku's long reception over 19.5 yards, and Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Joe Lisi on Mahomes over 246.5 yards. That number dropping, so you can certainly get the best of it. Shout out Lisi for always being honest. What happened?
Just keep going.
This don't give you the thing?
Yeah, no.
All right, fair enough. Don't worry about it. Tyreek Hill over 86.5 receiving yards. Elijah Moore over 39.5 for Joe. And then Donnie here with Isaiah Pacheco's anytime touchdown score at -105. Durham Smythe over 17.5 yards. I did hear the breakdown from Durham Smythe earlier from Donnie, which with Smythe, who's been hitting this very, very consistently. And this is a game, too, you and I talked about this, Joe, with the Dolphins today. One of the reasons why, despite the weather, I like this Tua completion props here, I guess I don't mind spoiling because I know you guys are kind of – my best bet tonight is going to be Tua over 20.5 completions. I do think in this weather, you still need to get the ball to your explosive guys. Some of the sideline-to-sideline screen passes really should be there in this game.
Well, that's why I like Tyreek Hill, right? The bubble screens, the ability to get that one-on-one opportunity out in space, missed tackles. The biggest thing, and we talk about it in terms of the cold weather, guys don't want to wrap up, right? So you can get these chunk plays breaking out in terms of huge, passing plays in regards to might be a 2 or 3 yard bubble screen that turns into an 80-yard reception. Because there's no pursuit and no guys are wrapping up. So, look, I'm with you in regards to, I could see Tua moving the football as well. It's do or die, right? And think about last year, if you want to look for the Miami Dolphins perspective, with Skylar Thompson in that ball game last year. And what were they, 12.5, 13-point dogs against Buffalo?
Yes.
They lost by 3 points. So
he threw the ball 45 times with Skylar Thompson.
Right, So he has coached talent up. He didn't win a playoff game, but, again, they're going to give it their best shot. I don't believe, when you look at this matchup tonight, I don't believe the Miami Dolphins are going to go, it's cold, we're just going to run it into the line of scrimmage, 46 times and get out of Dodge and try to win this ball game 6-3. I think McDaniel's going to go like this. Waddle's back, Hill's back. If I don't give them 20 touches between them, Are we thinking alike? 63 alts?
So here's really the thing with me in this game. So let's
dial it back.
Okay.
Good.
So I really think that Miami in this game is the break tendency team.
Okay.
I think Miami comes out and says, okay, you know what? Everyone's cold. I don't care. Get down the field, Tyreek. We're going to hit a 75-yarder to open this game up, and we're going to put the Kansas City Chiefs behind it because the Chiefs are, and this is even when they were at their best, the Chiefs we'll put together a 9-minute drive and ice this game. We'll just run Pacheco 100 times. Andy Reid doesn't really care that he has Pat Mahomes. He will just, if the defense is giving him the run, I know you think Pat can have a big game. I'm not saying he can't, right? But there's been a lot of times this year where we've looked at the Chiefs like, this is the bounce-back Mahomes game, and it doesn't come. I think in order for the Chiefs to do what you want them to, I think they need to be pushed, even if they come out hot early.
Yeah.
If Miami no-shows this game, Mahomes will shut it down, Kelsey will shut it down, and Pacheco will ice this game away because that's what Reid likes to do. So that's why, to me, I think that Miami, and this is why I'm interested in Miami winning the football game plus the points, and why I'm hoping Mahomes can just run for 41 yards in this game and get in and get out, because if this game, when they played in Germany, it was 21-0, and all of a sudden that game was 21-14, Miami got the football back and had an opportunity to make a real dent and tie that football game up. If this is, and that's extreme, but if this is reversed, I have no faith the Chiefs can come back. If they trail in this game by 10 points, they just don't. I know they have the aura is things they've done years ago. At no point this year have they looked like that team that can complete a legit comeback.
No, it's a great point. Think about what I just brought up in terms of the Open. 25-9 at home since 2020. 4 of the losses came this year against good teams. 3 out of the 4 that they lost are playoff teams: Philly, Buffalo, and Detroit. Right?
Yeah.
So just think about that. I agree with you. Who's the go-to guy? It's not even Travis Kelce anymore. Right? That is the problem.
Lower prop.
Who can you count on? We know who you could potentially count on if they're healthy, and that's Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So they're going to get an opportunity. I agree with you. You have me more thinking now maybe we do play a Miami team total.
19.5. So
why is that so cheap?
Because I hate this team. I'm gonna be the Miami thing has really bothered me because
you're going to get me in on the over.
I know
Miami's team total.
because here's the thing. So I mentioned they're 1-4, the Chiefs against playoff teams. Everyone has scored 20+ other than Miami. Miami is the only exception to the Chiefs this year not being able to beat good teams. By the way, yes, that's the Eagles when they were still playing well. But actually, that was the start of the end for Philly. If you think about how they played in that game, they eked that out. Buffalo barely got there, but still got there. Detroit in week 1. And Miami only gets the 4. But that Green Bay hung 27 on them. So this isn't like, they've played the Niners and Dallas and all. Not really, right? They've played teams that at times a lot of people haven't believed in. Miami has been and that's the thing for me. And at sometimes, scared. They say scared money don't make money. And I'm going to be honest. I feel a little scared to trust Miami because it'll almost feel, I'll feel stupid. If the Dolphins lose this game,
I'll pull the trigger for you.
I know you will.
I'm gonna put it in after. I'm gonna take Miami's team total. And again, if I'm in on Tyreek,
right?
Here's the thing. If I'm Mike McDaniel, I'm not going in. I wasted an opportunity to utilize Waddle and Hill in this ball game to score points.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill's wearing no sleeves today. He's in this ball.
Did he say that?
He said that. I don't know if it's true. We'll see. All right, so if he's wearing no sleeves.
Yeah, wear sleeves.
All right, well.
Hold on. Now, all right, let's ask the right question. If it's you today out there.
No sleeves.
Dangerous weather. No sleeves?
No, I'll see. I'll play it out. No sleeves.
You don't like being cold, though.
No, I don't. In my old age, I don't. But back in the day, you got to show off the gun.
That's a good
Tyreek
point.
Hill's
You work
built.
hard.
He's built. You got to show it off. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I think between Hill and between Waddle, 20 touches each, whether that's bubble screen, short hitches, slants. We haven't talked about Waddle enough.
I want to bet Waddle low, 44.5. I mean, I was going to be on this guy in the first game.
I love the over, so now it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know.
The over to me.
Talk to me here, some playoff leader props. At the quarterback position, most passing yards, Dak 2-1, Josh Allen 4-1, Mahomes 550, Purdy 550. I mean, who do you like to go on a run? I mean, look, Dak's the rightful favorite, admittedly.
He is, though, but I mean, that's a front runner. I mean, I think what's intriguing is Jared Goff. What is it, 10-1? Because
Stroud to me at 25 is a ridiculous price to me. Home playoff game indoors in the AFC side of it. It's funny. I say that, like, this is where value versus winning. I think there's a lot of value on Stroud, but I don't even have them winning in their own game today.
Well, if you don't have them winning.
No, it's dead to rights. But at 25, like, he's 25 and Jalen Hurts is 23. Like, you betting Jalen Hurts in that? Yeah, you are betting Jalen Hurts in that.
Well, Jalen Hurts, I think, is a player that could take the game over. I think Jalen Hurts will utilize a lot more with his legs in this game against Tampa Bay than he will potentially with his arm, especially with A.J. Brown out of that lineup. But if you want to go deep shots, and we talk about two teams that I'm on, Green Bay with Jordan Love and Matt Stafford. I mean, Matt Stafford gets through Detroit. You're talking about a Super Bowl champ.
You're on the Rams.
I'm on the Rams. I am.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I have him. 46-1. I mean, Kev.
No, but see, that's where it's not. See, what's happening to you isn't right, though. You know this.
What?
But you've been on the Rams for a long time.
Yes.
But you've seen it. The avalanche is coming.
Yes, the mushes.
Everybody.
I know. So that's why I say you take the ticket on Jared Goff and Detroit at plus 950 as a backup.
I like St. Brown at 9-1 most receiving yards. I think that's a good number there. Adam Caplan joins us next on SportsGrid.
You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The wife said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, your mind. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi here. Our guy DRS stepping away. All good. No worries there. But we're going to have Adam Caplan, NFL Insider, to step in here. And Cap, it's so funny. We get into the playoffs, and obviously it's very busy because now we're focusing in on the biggest games. I can only imagine for you, who has to focus on the biggest games and spend a lot of time dealing with this crazy cycle that we have going on with NFL head coaches. Just take us through kind of this process that is now starting to unfold for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of confusion because the rules almost change every year. They're adjusted because what the NFL does not want, and I hear this from clubs, is that they don't want the coaches being distracted. So what they've done is, if you're coaching this weekend or Monday night for the Bucks or Eagles, you cannot interview in person until the following Monday, which is the 22nd of January. And that way, these guys don't have to travel. Well, they actually couldn't travel anyway, but to do interviews. But in years past, many years ago when I first started, clubs would actually fly to the city where the guy's coaching, and they would sit down with these clubs on a Friday night after the last practice. The league doesn't want that anymore. It's just not right. Also, with these virtual interviews by Zoom or Skype, typically Zoom or Microsoft Teams, you can interview those coaches who are coaching now starting next week only virtually before the game, before the divisional round, but you cannot interview them in person. Now, once they lose, they could interview them in person, of course. Now, the coaches who can interview now are the coaches who are not in the playoffs and also college coaches. Like if a club wants to interview a college head coach, they will put a request in with the school, let them know they want to interview them, and they could do it like that. So that's the way those will go. So a lot of these are going to be delayed in terms of hiring because a lot of these teams want to get these guys in front of them, and they can't in person. So what they're doing this week, that's why you're seeing all the reports of requests, because they have to get them in now. They have to get them in by the end of this next coming week. And once they get them all in, they'll look to interview them again in person. That's the most important thing here, because one thing I do want to get off started here, and I remember this many years ago happening. Like, let's say you see a report, and I've been one of the people who've put these things out over the years, like so-and-so is a favorite for this job. Well, that's until the interview. Like, I'll give an example. When Mike Tomlin became the Steelers head coach, he was 7th on their list. No one thought they were going to hire him many years ago. Russ Grimm, their offensive line coach, was supposed to get the job. Didn't go well for him. Mike Tomlin blew them away, and he became the head coach. So when you see someone's a favorite and they wind up not becoming that head coach, something probably happened in the interview. It's almost always what happens.
Cap, I want to ask you about that in regards to the situation in Las Vegas and New England, respectively. Reports that Antonio Pierce most likely will get the job, and the players loved him, specifically Max Crosby. Do you get that gauge with Gerard Mayo? Not a lot of players really stepped up. It didn't really look like he was one of the coordinators that was loved by everybody in that locker room.
No, actually, Joe, I think the opposite. They actually love him. They adore him. He's 37 years old. He was drafted in the first round in 2008. In fact, Joe, in my reporting on this for Pro Football Network, he actually had a chance to interview for head coaching jobs last year, coordinator jobs, and the Patriots said, hey, wait a minute. We really have an interest in you becoming Bill Belichick's successor. And they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And also, they bumped up his pay. They gave him more responsibility, I'm told, on the staff. He was a co-coordinator with Steve Belichick. Mayo, Joe, was called their linebackers coach, but he really was a co-coordinator. And they loved him in there. No, in fact, remember, the press conference is until next week. He's really liked. In fact, I know the Eagles were blown away by him 2 years ago before they hired Nick Sirianni. Mayo was one of those guys who interviewed. Now, he was 35 then, which is a little bit young. Now he's 37. No, he's beloved by the organization. And then Bob Kraft, not Mike Vrabel, Mike. This is interesting. Like, they could have waited, but because this process had been done months ago, it's not like they knew Mike Vrabel was going to be fired. And that one stunned me. That was the only one that really surprised me, to be honest with you, of the 8 changes. That's the one where I did write on Monday. That's one to watch just because there was uncertainty about how control would happen and who would make the personnel decisions and how everything would go going forward with Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel. But the owner, they only got rid of him. That was a surprise.
So tell me then, Cap, if Vrabel's the only one that stunned you, that would kind of suggest that the Pete Carroll thing did not catch you as off guard as it seemingly caught a lot of people. What did you make of what played out there with the Seattle Seahawks decision?
Okay, see, here, Kevin, here's the thing. Yes, after Carroll said he expected to be back, that's the surprise that he wasn't, because it was his expectation, but he had not talked to ownership about it, though he has had a good relationship and still will, because he'll be an advisor to the club with ownership, with Jody Allen, who's the chair/owner. The bottom line is, at 72 years old, as I understand it, talking to multiple people, they're looking to get a younger head coach, more forward-thinking. Pete has always been, a defensive guy, run the ball. By the way, the defense really fell off this season. They had some injuries, but it really fell off. It was not what they were expecting. And they just want to move on and go younger here and have a new voice. But he's beloved there, no question about it. These are tough things to deal with. It's really hard to do this with all the success. And John Schneider, their general manager, came in 2010 together. The two men did not know each other. Pete's significantly older than John, and they set an NFL record in 2010 for transactions, several hundred of them. And it took them a while to get it right, but they sure got it right. Got a Super Bowl win out of that over the years, and also got 2 appearances. Bottom line is, they're going to move on, and Dan Quinn will be the favorite going in. Here's the difference between everybody else. They know him. They won a Super Bowl with him when he was their defense coordinator, and the guy got to the Super Bowl with the Falcons. Really good. He is the top defensive candidate, by the way. Raheem Morris of the Rams, who's phenomenal, who's just too young in his early 30s when he was the Bucs head coach well over a decade ago. He's the second guy that'll be on the team's list, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with these 8 openings. Right now, they're only 8. The bottom line is, it's going to be fascinating to see, because usually it's more offense and defense, but there's some really good defensive head coaching candidates, no question about it.
Cap, we see like Mike Kafka being linked to potentially Tennessee, Ben Johnson, another offensive name that's going to be obviously getting coaching interviews. So is Eric Bieniemy now completely out of the mix in regards to any of these opportunities? And did he actually make a bad choice in terms of going to Washington? Because now all of a sudden he seems to be behind everyone.
Well, here's why, Joe. It's a good point in that he left the Chiefs because he wanted to call plays. It's hard to hire a head coach who's not, if your coordinator has not called plays. Clubs are looking for that, particularly from the offensive side of the football. Unless you're going to be what we call a CEO head coach, where you don't call plays, you just manage everybody from a day-to-day and game-to-game basis. But look, I could tell you, I talked to someone last night with very good connections to Washington who thought that they will look to swing big. You mentioned Ben Johnson. He's the number one guy. I wrote this, months ago. I still feel the same thing. He's by far the top candidate. Now, I say that. It's always how this guy interviews. The Panthers wanted to hire him last year. He was not going to interview. In fact, Joe, they were going to pair up Ben Johnson and Brian Johnson, the then Eagles quarterbacks coach, who would later be promoted to their OC if Ben Johnson needed to find an offensive coordinator candidate. Look, everybody wants Ben Johnson. There's only one guy, but he is the belle of the ball, as they speak, in this year's coaching searches.
Cap, where do you expect Bill Belichick to go? I don't think there's any indication that this guy's done coaching in the NFL. What are you hearing?
Oh, yeah, he's definitely going to coach. Although it's interesting, many years ago when NFL Films did the documentary on him, he said he didn't see himself coaching in the 70s, but here we are. He's in his 70s, and one of his best friends, Nick Saban, just retired at 72. But the bottom line is, with Belichick, he absolutely wants to coach. Keep an eye on Atlanta, and here's the reason why. Remember, Thomas Dimitroff was a former general manager who was a protege of Belichick. Dimitroff, Dan Quinn got to the Super Bowl. That's a big one to keep an eye on there. And the thing with Arthur Blank is a man who's obviously an advanced age. They don't want to rebuild. Like, they spent, I'm told, over $80 million in free agent dollars this past cycle in March and April. And they want to make a drive here to move this thing forward and get back to the Super Bowl very quickly. And that to me that would appeal to kind of Belichick. And here's a guy who's not looking to sort of rebuild now. He wants to get another ring and puts his 7th on his thumb. So that's a team to keep an eye on here. But the thing is, though, when clubs look at the hiring cycle, the Falcons don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. The big reason why Ben Johnson, by the way, is such a hot commodity, particularly with teams who are looking to develop a quarterback, look at the job he's done with Jared Goff, folks. I mean, people thought he was going on, quite frankly, finished. And Brad Holmes, the general manager who he worked with the Rams, Brad was their college director. And Brad put his name on the line there and traded for Goff. And Ben Johnson got on everybody's radar with his work last season. That's why he's the number one guy.
I want to ask about the game tomorrow in regards to Buffalo and Pittsburgh. If there is a situation where the Steelers, let's say, strike the upset cap, is there any situation or scenario where McDermott could be out the door for the Bills?
No, I don't see it. No, he's been phenomenal. Him and Brandon Beane have changed that thing around there. Look, a lot of coaches have left for better jobs, head coaching jobs and coordinator jobs, and he's lost some good coaches. But no, I have not heard that at all. Mike Tomlin, though, is one to watch because no, he's not getting fired if they lose. It's just, and I'm sure they would want to look to redo his deal. But the question is, how much longer does he want to coach? They're talking to coaches over the years, guys. Sometimes you worry about burnout. Remember when Dick Vermeil shocked the world in Philly in '82? Out of the blue, he had burnout. I don't know what Mike Tomlin's situation is, but talking to coaches around the league that know him, they just wonder, 15 years, is it too much? You just don't see guys coaching this long, but he is absolutely incredible, and he could coach in Pittsburgh for as long as he wants. And boy, that's a big number by tomorrow, 9.5. It's actually dropped from 10 to 9.5 there in Buffalo.
All right, maybe then number's too big, but Cab, we'll get your thoughts on that tomorrow when we will get to talk to you. And we'll see if there's any updates around the coaching cycle here throughout the National Football League. Appreciate it as always. Joe and I will go through tonight's games after this quick break.
Sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Weiss said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
I'll take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, your mind. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. Not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back right here. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi.
Whip around.
Look,
best part.
In memory, this guy, he's fine. He's fine. He was just in here. Now we can laugh. This guy doesn't eat with the fasting.
The remote. He's got the remote.
Yeah. All right, let me click around here, find a couple of picks. Listen, with the weather here too. This guy looking around. You think I'm probably messing with his computer in the back cave.
Apocalyptic weather.
Wow, you figured it out.
Weather.
He'll never believe it. What to send him the clip. That falling back here, man.
I love this show. I actually love this show.
I'm glad. I think it's been a lot of fun, as always. I want to do this quickly because we were supposed to do kind of got mixed around, then we're going to reset the game just quickly. Where you think there's some value, where I think there's some value. Most passing yards, you mentioned Goff. I'm not actually involved in this market. If I had to bet one guy, it would probably be Josh Allen at 4-1. I think there's value on Stroud, but I also think it's a completely losing wager.
Yeah, I would go in terms of this ball game tonight, Kansas City and Miami. If you think one team could potentially go and make a run at an AFC championship, I think there's value there in regards to that. And on the NFC side, I'm still sticking with my guns. I'm in on two dark horses, the LA Rams and the Green Bay Packers in terms of futures tickets, 45-1 and 35-1 respectively to win the NFC. We talked about Jordan Love in terms of last week. He's averaging 270 passing yards per game since November 12th, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And we talked about Dallas' secondary being suspect, right? It's feast or famine with this team.
Yeah.
So are you going to get the Dallas Cowboys that shut out the New York Giants week 1? Or are you going to get the Dallas Cowboy defense that got abused by Seattle and Geno Smith on that Thursday night where it was points aplenty and they almost pushed them to the limit? So to say that Jordan Love, if somehow, some way they win this ball game tomorrow, can't go on a heater the rest of the playoffs, you can't say that he can't put up 700-800 yards if they win a ball game or two.
No, I absolutely agree. I think this is a spot where those teams are dangerous. It's that I'm kind of bouncing back and forth on the game. Receiving leaders, CeeDee Lamb's 2-1, Amon-Ra 9. I like the Amon-Ra number at 9. If you like the Lions to kind of make a move there, with Laporta out, that workload should be big. Devonta Smith 25-1 now with A.J. Brown missing a game. Could you be talked into a number like that?
Oh, 25-1. Yeah, I mean, you're talking my language.
It could be any player.
It could be any player. I will say this. And I keep going back down to L.A. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, one of those guys. I mean, and I understand they're going to have to go up potentially.
So hot
against,
on this Rams.
Well, I'm just saying, you talk about value. You talk about teams that could stretch defenses over the top, right? So, all right. So if you're not going to talk front runners and you're not going to talk,
you can take the top guys though.
Well, I mean, but on Baltimore, do we really think Zay Flowers or potentially someone else on that offense is going to lead all of the receivers? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the problem, right, with like a CeeDee Lamb at 2-1, Dallas is minus 120 to make the NFC Championship game. I think I'd rather bet that.
What's Debo?
Where did it just go? Debo Samuel is, where is this thing? I think it was like 19-1 for Debo.
That's not bad value. I mean, you get the number 1 seed with star wide receiver at 19-1.
18.
That's not bad value.
I would just say this, and we'll do it tomorrow. I'd rather Kupp at 40 than Puka at 25. Maybe I'm outdated with that, but that's how I would play it. Quickly, rushing. Plus 170 McCaffrey, 5-1 on Cook, 8-1 Pacheco, as well as Pollard, 850 Kyron. Anyone in the rushing?
I don't want to keep going to the Rams. I would go, how about, I like Cleveland to make a run. Okay, so
Jerome Ford's 50.
Ford, I think it could start today. His number's 43.5.
Does Gus Edwards Lamar's the guy at 20. I don't hate the Lamar. So I'm on the Lamar under, but I understand.
Like Lamar, then why not Jalen?
Hurts?
Yeah.
Well, the pathway is just so different.
Well,
Jalen Hurts, he's 85-1. These numbers are going to disappear, just a heads up.
You're going to get me. We got until 4:30.
Yeah, it's true.
Eastern time. I mean, that is great value. I mean, Jalen Hurts 85-1.
Yeah. Is he going to take off the way he could? I don't know if he does.
Well, I'll tell you this. Without A.J. Brown in that line on Monday night, I think he takes the game on a little bit more in terms of the rushing attack. He is a guy that hates to lose. If anybody wants to get back to the Super Bowl, it's him. He's going to do whatever it takes to win that ball. And Tampa Bay's rush defense hasn't been.
No, I get what you're saying. But in the same vein, like Rashad at 25-1, I understand.
Rashad White?
Yeah.
He's been coming on. You know, the first half of the season couldn't get over 50 rushing yards.
That's what I'm saying. He's been
now over the second half of the season, he's averaging at least 75 yards per game on the ground. He's catching the football out of the backfield. How about Aaron Jones? I mean,
here's my problem with Aaron Jones. It's not even the Dallas game. So you're on Green Bay. We did this last night on Game Time. I kind of just reset my futures, and obviously completely unintentionally, but we both have preseason Packers and Browns conference bets. My thing with the Green Bay is if they beat Dallas, that's great. They're not beating Dallas and San Fran back-to-back. I can't see it.
I know you can't see it, but that doesn't
Can
mean
you?
Again, I'd still like to have that 30-1 on Aaron Jones because let me ask you this. If they do beat them, is Aaron Jones going to have a huge part of that offense? Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's true. That's true. I think for me, I don't think there's a team in the league, a single team that I would say is going to go to Dallas and San Fran in back-to-back weeks and come away with a win. It's not as much a slide on Green Bay.
Oh, I understand.
I don't see that pathway being there. Imagine I knocked this glass off after all. It's been a day.
It's been a day. I will say this. When the one player we're not mentioning, Tony Pollard. And
rightfully so. The guy's terrible.
But
he's awful. I can't.
Well, then let me ask you this.
I can't stand him.
Let me ask you this. What about, because of how prevalent the rushing attack has been at the second half of the season, Buffalo, if you believe the Bills are going to be there, what are you giving me for James Cook? What are you giving me for potentially?
It's only plus 500. Now,
where's Josh Allen in that mix? He had 61 rushing yards against Miami.
38? 38-1?
38-1. Where do we think he's going to run the football tomorrow? I think he's going to rush it at least 20 times.
So how do you feel about Josh Allen plus 800 to lead the postseason in rushing touchdowns?
Like it.
I think that makes more sense. McCaffrey's 350, Pollard 750. I think that makes more sense.
That makes a ton more sense to me.
Montgomery shouldn't be in front of Gibbs in that market anymore, by the way, with the way they use those guys.
But that's good, though, because Gibbs is the home run hitter.
See, like this is where if you thought Miami, and you don't like Miami as much tonight, but A-Chain is 30-1 with the rushing touchdowns. I don't know how.
Just get me blow past the 43.5.
Yeah.
That's all I need. Blow right through it.
Tonight would have been a good night for AC. We could have had some fun.
We should be breaking, Barab.
I know. Look, let's re-rack and spin these games here.
Okay.
Cleveland 2.5, total 44.5. This is where you and I are. I do think Cleveland's experience advantage matters.
Yep.
This total just touched 45. Keep going, and I'll come. I am. This is the contrarian under.
I know, and I'm with you. 23-17 Cleveland.
Yeah,
That's
hot on
saying
this direct
23-17. Again, I don't believe Joe Flacco is going to light this defense up the way he did 3 weeks ago, 36 points.
Yeah.
And I don't think Amari Cooper has 264. If he has 120 in this game, I think that's a great productivity in terms of this matchup. I think it's a heavy dose of Jerome Ford. If I'm Stefanski, why do I want to get into a shootout with C.J. Stroud at home? That's exactly what Houston, I believe, wants to do in terms of this offensive philosophy, right? If I'm Stefanski, I want to grind out an 8-minute drive with Flacco. I have the experienced quarterback. I have the veteran defense led by Myles Garrett. Let's run the football. Jonathan Taylor put up 188 yards on that front seven. Let's see if they could stop the run early. If they can't, game on. I might not have to throw it 20 times if I'm Joe Flacco in terms of this ball game. I like Cleveland, the veteran quarterback with the veteran defense.
Yeah.
Defense only giving up $167 in the back end, and I like Ford over the 43.5. I keep going to this 23-17.
This is where I've been getting a little too big brain. I want to do the Kareem Hunt. The 24.5, the veteran back, been there before, postseason experience.
I think Ford's a little bit faster. He's younger.
I think he's better.
Yeah.
I agree.
But more physical would be Kareem Hunt, which is somewhat like Jonathan Taylor.
Props for me in this game, Stroud over 21.5 pass completions as well as over 244.5 passing yards. I'm on David Njoku's longest reception over 19.5 yards.
I'm on Elijah Moore over the 38.5. I'm on Ford in terms of this ball game. On the flip side, Devin Singletary, not on the ground, up to 14.5 because I think checkdowns. They didn't give an alt. They didn't hang an alt number on Singletary. Typically with the running backs, they put a 25 number up there. That's what Najee had at plus 750 last week. But I think he could get into the 30s or 40s today.
Chiefs-Dolphins, 4.5-point line, 43.5 total. I would look towards Miami plus the points. I think they could cover in a loss here. Kansas City's offense has not shown an ability to run and hide. I think Miami's has a better chance to do it in this game. I think they can strike the upset here at Arrowhead Stadium. The Chiefs this season have played postseason teams at Arrowhead 3 times this year. They've lost all 3 of those games. The total is 43.5. And for anybody watching who's a Chiefs fan is screaming at the TV, well, Miami's lost every road play. I know. I think this is a spot though where Miami can take advantage of this Kansas City team.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We talk about Kansas City just 5-4 at home this year, 4 losses by 3.5 points per game. Pat Mahomes only averaging 240 passing yards over his last 8 games. And on the flip side, you have a Miami team that in 4 step-up spots, Kev. We talk about it. On the road, including that game in Germany, they've lost to teams like Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Kansas City, and Baltimore 2 weeks ago. And they lost by an average margin of defeat of 21.5 points per game. You might be right in terms of Miami, but I'm all in on the over. 43.5. I don't care that it's cold weather. I think both quarterbacks will want to push tempo. You have playmakers at every level. I think it's a big game for Pat Mahomes over the 239.5. I did alt Kelsey up to 80-plus checkdowns in terms of Travis Kelsey, slants, and in terms of bubble screens to the big guy, get him out in space. And Tyreek Hill, I think, eats in a big way. I think he can get to $1.25. He will not have back-to-back games, in my opinion, against his former team where he gets under 100. He breaks out in a big way. I altered it to 63.5, as high as I'll go, 10-1.
Oh, 61? What do you mean 63?
No, the total. 60,
oh, the 63.
Yeah, Tyreek up to $1.25, I think is like 2-1 tonight.
I do agree with you over on Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns. He's hit this in 11 of 14 playoff games, 5 out of 9 home games this season. I'm including the neutral against Miami, but again, that was against Miami where he threw 2 passing touchdowns. Elite quarterbacks have done this season. Mahomes, Hurts, Dak, Lamar, Josh Allen in both games here. This is what we've seen against Miami. The best quarterbacks are able to throw 2 passing touchdowns. If there was ever a time for Mahomes to be greedy and get the goal line touchdown passes, it's this spot here against Miami. He's missed this in 2 in a row, has not missed this 3 straight times this season, has only happened twice in his whole career. So I'm looking for Mahomes to get in. Montua, that's in the best bet segment, which we will get to next as we deliver it to the people. And we'll make sure to give you what Donnie's best bet would be for the day. So I'm going to have to do I change it? Donnie's best bet over Steelers, Bills, over Dolphins, Chiefs parlay. Do we change it on him? He would do it to us.
He would do it to us.
He would do it to us.
And then say, great pick when it goes.
Absolutely. I can't believe Odds in Motion broke this guy. What a tough scene. Best bets on the other side right here as we close out Pro Football today.
You have sat down with Nick Saban for a lengthy interview. You have spoken to Nick Saban multiple times throughout his career. How surprised were you?
I mean, he's not going anywhere, I don't believe. And at the end of the day, very surprised. Athletic department surprised. Talked to a few people, Alabama folks, late last night, early this morning. Very surprised. Didn't see it coming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
favorite. I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The Weiss said we're getting the Stanley Cups, and now they got Stanley Cups in West Virginia.
Yep. They're doing $300 million gross a year in sales.
Listen, man, we don't need that much, man.
They're crushing
Take
it.
a little piece of the Stanley Cup. I would drink from the Stanley Cup every day. I'll have inscribed on there. We'll get our BVB inscribed.
Yeah.
Stanley Cups.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
That tells you how good this league is. Jeff, you're mine. Big 12. Who's the team to beat?
Well, it's always Kansas. I don't care who comes in the league. And I love Kelvin Sampson, what he's done at Houston. I don't care. So Marquette, to me, is the best backcourt in the country. Tyler Kolek's the best point guard. Cam Jones is an elite scorer who just plays with such a good pace, and he's so smart.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
What did you think when you saw Lawrence on 3rd and 4th down, those two plays?
When you have a meltdown like the Jaguars had, the clear favorite coming into the season, we all know that, and they choke like they did, and they have this fall like they did, people are going to question what's wrong with Trevor Lawrence. He had a regression. It's not a major one, but he was not as good as last season. What's happened to the play calling?
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Yay, congratulations, but the game was over at that point, so another one of those terrible beats. If you had 3.5, 4, even 4.5, this was a 10-point game until the final closing seconds.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pro football today. We're closing out our Saturday edition here on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh and Joe Lisi. Best bet time. Donnie Right-Side's best bet is Joe Flacco over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Flacco has hit this in all of his starts as the Browns quarterback. And this Houston Texans pass defense has been vulnerable, Joe. I don't mind that look at all from Donnie.
No, last 4 games by Joe Flacco, he's averaged 340 passing yards per game and 11 touchdowns, so that could be a look in terms of this matchup. Hopefully, he goes to Elijah Moore in this ballgame.
And then a little David and Njoku. No Amari Cooper today, possibly. What do you like here for your best bet?
Well, it's total contrarian total, and I understand the apocalyptic weather out there in Arrowhead. I nailed it, right? Everybody's selling this total. I'm going I'm alternate up to 50.5, as high as 63.5. I don't care about the cold weather. I think it's a big day by Tyreek Hill. His number's 86.5. Huge day by Pat Mahomes and all of the playmakers in this ball game. Points, points, points. You're with me. I know you are.
I am. I'll give people a quick, because we have a little time behind the scenes. Lisi sending in the plays, right, says over in the game, but didn't send a number. They go, oh, hey, so 44.5? Yeah, sure, tack on a half point. I like it even more. But it is a 44 number there. For me, Tua Tagovailoa, over 20.5 completions. Tua has done this in 5 out of 6 games played against playoff teams, 7 out of 8 road games this season. That is absolutely key. The Chiefs have allowed this to 11 of 17 opposing starting quarterbacks. All of the trends are there. But what really, really pushes me to liking this, Mike McDaniel saw the playoffs last year in Buffalo. I know it wasn't as cold, but it was cold. He was dealing with his 5th, 8th string quarterback. I mean, my goodness, Skylar Thompson, he threw it 45 times. Now, I know Skylar only completed 18 of those passes. Luckily, Tua is far better than Skylar Thompson. I think all checkdowns and short passes to their explosive players are there, because I can get Lisi on this Dolphins team total. That is Joe Lisi. I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you tomorrow for Pro Football Today, Sunday style.